Camera recording.
I don't remember my name.
Camera recording. Camera recording.
Audio is audioing.
I'm rolling. Alright, audio recording.
There you go! Okay, we're all good?
Can't make up words, why the
I'm not gonna pulling ugly faces, bro. Hi everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of Nights at the Round Table 3rd Series. Today we are discussing the book by Stephen King, The Gunslinger, book 1 of the Dark Tower series. And I'm just going to jump straight into general impressions of the book. And I'm going to start with PY, because he hasn't been here in a while.
Hello. General impressions. I've read it about 4 times now, and I liked it. And I've pretty much read through the rest multiple times too. And I think what stood with me the most was the first time I read it, considering it was actually my first Stephen King book. And for me, Stephen King, I had heard, was a master of horror. And then all of a sudden, there's this man walking through a desert. And the more it went on, the more I realized that... What?
Sorry, never mind, going through songs in my head.
So random. So random.
That's it exactly!
On a horse
through
with
the
no
desert
name.
on a horse with no name. So
Yep.
keep going.
And,
Okay, guy walking through desert. Gotcha.
guy walking through desert. And I'm just like, okay, this isn't setting up to be a horror at all. And then the further it went, the more I realized that, this had a lot more fantasy aspects. And basically, through the rest of the series anyways, that's pretty much what it sets up.
Mm-hmm. Rob?
Okay.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I have read some Stephen King books before. Generally, I've liked some of them, not liked some of them. I've read some bad books before. Some I really, really hated. This one was one of the worst things I've ever had to force myself to slog through. Sorry, Stephen.
Wow.
No love. None. Zero.
Okay. Is that all of your general impression?
Yeah, that's my whole general impression right there. Yeah.
I love this book, and I don't like Stephen King. Every other book by Stephen King I've read, I've just been meh about it. Not particularly, but this book was enthralling. From the way it opened with this man who doesn't have a name until about a third of the way through the book, chasing the man in black across the desert, and it was just, it caught me right away and it held me. And there's not a lot of westerns, weird or otherwise, that I like, and I like this. I love that the world is such a marvelous blend of post-nuclear fallout, although medieval feudal system, although western sort of world. It's just, I loved it a lot.
Okay, so for the same reason why she loved it, I thought it was a mess. Pick a point in time, Western post-apocalyptic flashbacks to the past. I was sitting there being like, what?
See, I disagree.
Like,
I
what?
love the blending of genres in this book very much. And I think because it starts off with a man in the desert on a horse with no name. Because it starts off with this man who doesn't have a name or even really any purpose other than chasing the black man, the flashbacks work.
They add the context.
They add the context slowly through the book rather than
They
jumping in
should add the context. They could have worked. I find the way he did it was atrocious.
Nope, disagree.
Then again,
It worked
it's
for me.
also the fact that The Gunslinger, if I'm remembering this correctly, is the first thing Stephen King ever wrote. It's not the first thing he ever published, but it's one of the first things he ever started working on. Sorry, I'm pointing to the guy off screen.
I actually made some notes about that, and we'll talk about that later. Get ready.
So, yeah, this version in particular adds, I think it's an extra 35 pages. It's the first version I read, so it's a little tidier than the other ones, but
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was because he went back to rewrite them. He rewrote this one and then decided the rest
first
didn't
four.
need any work.
He retouched the first 4 books.
Oh, the first four, really?
The first 4, I think it was after the 5th was released.
Okay.
Which is where I started reading them, because I saw the 5th, I'm like, hey, that looks cool.
Yeah.
Wait, it's the 5th? I guess I need to go find 1, 2, 3,
Incidentally,
4.
the 5th is the only one I've got still left on my bookshelf, so whoever has borrowed my books, can I have them back, please? I listened to this one because I didn't have the books, even though I've bought them. I know I've bought them. I listened to this on audiobooks from Audible, and it was really well read by George Goodell, I think his name was. He did a fantastic job. So if you don't feel like holding a book, I recommend the audiobook because it was very well done.
Audiobook might be the way to go for this, because maybe the person reading it will be a really good reader and interesting and put some life into it.
I disagree. I completely disagree.
Okay, so I feel before I slam this too much, I need to say I need to say something nice about it. There were some parts of the book where I thought it was building into something interesting. And one of the things was when he was in that town and he met the bartender girl.
In Tull?
Yeah, in Tull. And I thought that was going somewhere. And then, next thing I know, everybody's dead.
Right! Awesome, right?
Everything went to hell in a handbasket.
Yep.
And I was sitting there and I'm like, why?
Actually, I would
was like,
say it speaks to Roland's character.
That he killed everybody?
Yes. That his all-consuming quest for the Man in Black, and by extension for the Dark Tower, means that nothing will stand in his way. And twice, he kills people he loves in this book.
Why?
Because
19. They said the magic word 19.
Well, she did, yes.
Yeah.
And in the other case, it was a choice between... spoiler alert! It was a choice between Jake and the Man in Black. So he went for the Man in Black.
So, he's sleeping with this girl, and in the space of like a page and a half, he's sleeping with this girl, everything's going well, he's, moderately happy. I mean, yes, he has a mission, granted, but all of a sudden, blah, 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 and she's one of the people lying on the floor, and I'm like, what? Did I read this wrong? Did I skip a page? Like, what?
Did you skip a paragraph? Did you not see that she's starting to go mad because she said the number 19 and found out what that meant?
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, and then...
No, but like,
she
it was like
leaves.
a mercy killing. And also she was holding him back.
Oh.
And that was...
Don't let your girlfriend hold you back. Shoot her first. Yes.
This is your friendly PSA. Don't let anyone hold you back. Shoot them first.
And the weird thing about this is she's saying this. That's my job. They were doing horrible things to me in the intermission.
Making him listen to poetry.
Poetry based on this book.
No! Other way around. This book was based on a poem, Child Roll into the Dark Tower Came by Robert Browning. Largely. And also influenced by a number of other factors, obviously.
The point I was trying to make was they should have just stuck with the poem. I enjoyed the poem. I thought it was well read. And it was short.
But this is the shortest one of the series.
Yeah, it is.
That's what scares me, okay?
Everything expands from this point.
Somewhere around page 200, I thought to myself, oh wow, they're actually starting to get into the story.
Uh-huh.
Page 200!
Uh-huh.
Starting!
Yes!
I was like, something happened!
Okay. Yes, but...
I know he was walking through the desert, but fucking take a cab! Get to it!
There are no cabs left, remember? Post-nuclear fire.
Yes.
So, a camel, a horse, something!
He had a mule, but it died.
Double time, double time!
You crossed the desert double time with only, like, a pair of guns and
That's
a water
true.
skin.
That's true.
Very
That's
well
true.
described guns, I may add.
Yes. That's
He
actually...
goes into detail about his father's guns multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
The sandalwood grips, how heavy they are.
How naturally they fit into his palms.
A lot of the time I focused on his conversation with Jake. because it was something to pay attention to.
See, I actually liked the opening of him walking through the desert because it brought up a number of questions that I just really wanted answers to, and that's what part of what kept me reading. The other part of what kept me reading was I really liked the language that King employs in this book. The descriptions are beautiful, and he does a very good job of making the images real in my head so that I can actually see them rather than just read them or hear them described.
I think you should expand on that because
you zoned out.
No.
Or you're just not getting the same feel.
Yeah, I'm really not getting the same feel because
honestly, at the point where Jake is introduced, I felt it was taking away for a little while from everything else.
Yeah.
Because here you have this character, Roland, and they keep building upon him. And they start adding a bit of depth. They show you how important his quest is, what's driving him. And they do show, especially when he guns down the entire town, that nothing will stand in his way. And there is a very specific line in the book that specifically says, who needs a horn, ... or friends.
Yeah.
I like friends. I have many friends. Then again, I don't walk across deserts either. So. I'm not even really a Western guy, so that book...
That's just
I love Westerns.
I'm not a Western person either. I don't generally like them, but I liked this, mostly because it wasn't just Western, it was weird, and it was dark. And as a character, I really loved Roland. I loved that he was so driven by this quest, and I love that how in various flashbacks you see how he became consumed by the quest. Basically, everyone he ever loved is dead. And then you see him slowly, with Jake, soften up a little bit, and then he suffers the loss all over again.
And there's also the fact that everyone is long dead, but they don't really say how long.
Mm-hmm.
There's this reference of time, which is never really...
Time moves very oddly in this world.
Encapsulated.
Yeah.
So it's like, how long has he actually been walking?
And he's talking with Jake, and they're talking about things, from our world, like, movies and stuff, and Jake, and books, and Jake is like, have you heard of this? Have you seen this? And he's like, what? But there's some parts of our world that he does know, and he does understand that Jake has no idea about. And so I was trying to figure out, how the time progression functioned, and it really wasn't terribly clear.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. All you have to know is that this world is crumbling, and so time is warping, and time-space is warping, which is why you see the subway. Oh no, actually I lied. No, the subway was... I think the subway belonged to the world before whatever happened made it a wasteland. Yeah, it's like the previous civilization, the old people, I think. And yeah, that's you. Because I read a lot of Celtic myth, it made sense, like parallel worlds, almost parallel universes, and you cross the divide. Either way.
I would have liked a little bit more clarity. I think a little bit more clarity about where they were. How that was working might have gone a long way to eliminate a lot of the what the fucks that I came up with while I was reading this.
Yeah, a lot of the clarity comes in books 2 and 3.
Yeah, but I don't think you need that clarity because this is all from Roland's perspective.
Yeah, it sets up everything. It adds the questions, and to continue on, certain questions are answered as more are asked.
I was also kind of disappointed when he didn't get to the tower.
Okay, I just need to point something out to you. The Dark Tower won.
I know. The
Dark Tower is is the name of book 7. And the books only get bigger from this point on.
See, he's slogging through the desert and he's killing everybody, and there's time lapses, and the best parts of the books, were the flashbacks and his conversation with this kid, and I'm sitting there being like, okay, he's on this quest, this epic quest, make some progress, dude.
But he did. He caught the Man in Black.
So what did you think of that interaction then? When
With the Man in Black?
Yeah.
I felt like the whole scene was written by like a bad GM. You know, like, so he catches the guy, right? And so you're Roland. You know, you're playing that character. You know, and you finally make it to the end of the quest, and then you go to kill the guy, and you miss horribly, and then he starts talking at you.
Roland rolled 1 every single shot.
He rolled like I do.
Okay.
Or did he?
And how?
Because they never say he misses.
It's true. The GM might have been screwing you, which is sort of how I felt. Anyway, so the point was, he starts talking with the guy, and then next thing you know, the guy's like, okay, you know what? Start a fire, let's have supper. And he's like, shit, okay, whatever. So all of a sudden, he's having supper with this guy he's been hunting and wanted to kill. And I'm sitting there like, oh, God, what? And then...
Parlay. Parlay.
Okay, he killed a whole village and his girlfriend because he was so focused on his quest to find this guy, and then they shared a meal, and
Because
they
he
slept
missed-
on it, and like...
Because no matter what he did, he couldn't shoot the guy.
And it only gets better as the fact that he realizes not only did he want to catch this guy, that he now really wants to kill this guy, because it turns out that Walter O'Dim happens to be Martin from his past.
Yeah.
Who, slept with his mom.
And was
and
a
kind of
prig.
cheated on, everything else.
And was the reason why his house and his city fell.
I'll give you guys that. Not cool. Okay? Not cool, Man in Black. That's not cool. Being like, hey, dude, you're coming to kill me? Well, I also slept with your mom. Yeah, not cool.
No, not cool.
Okay.
I kind of liked the parlance that they had, but it was the weakest part of the book, I think, because it was so unnecessarily wordy.
It was long.
Yeah.
There's that. They talk. And apparently they talk for a long time.
Because the Man in Black becomes a skeleton when Roland wakes up. Basically died where he sat and decomposed.
I sympathize with that.
Yeah, you're wasting away.
I read this book over a period of 3 weeks, and I'm a quick reader. Right? 3 weeks.
And I've read it 5 times by now.
Yeah.
And I go for 2 days reading as fast as I could. I've read books this thick in 3 hours. 2 hours, maybe.
I really like how the Gunslingers are the knights of this realm. It's basically like the Knights of King Arthur, except it's the Gunslingers of Gilead.
Except he's not going to see that point after he took out an entire town. Which, in fairness, they were trying to stop him from his quest by any means possible, which included the pitchforks.
Yes, and they were also sort of driven into fanatical religious raving lunacy by what's-her-face.
We saying Twisted Paladin here? Maybe.
Paladin Gunslinger multiclass?
Yeah, no, he wouldn't be a paladin. No. Because paladins are too good, and Roland will do anything to get this quest done. That is his purpose in life. That's it. That's all he lives for.
Okay, one thing that I did kind of find interesting was the training scene where he killed his master.
Oh, he defeated. He didn't kill him.
Oh, yeah, defeated, right. So I kind of liked his out-of-the-box thinking on that one, because basically...
With David?
Yeah, so the guy's like, okay, so you only can challenge me once, and you have to choose your weapon, and so his master's got, what was it? It was an ironwood staff or something. And he's like, so choose your weapon, and the guy's like, I choose David. And everybody's like, what? Anyway, David was his hawk. So he brought a hawk to a staff fight, which I thought was pretty cool. And
I felt badly for that hawk.
I did feel badly for the hawk. I mean, so he sacrificed his bird in order to get his guns on.
Which, again, sets up his character. He does that...
kill everything he loves. Yes.
For the sake of his whatever quest he had. And at that point, that quest was to get rid of Martin. Right? Who...
was kind of ruining everything for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I liked that particularly because it does you realize that this is just who he is. That you get too close to this guy, and chances are he's going to leave you behind if it means getting him one step closer to his goal.
Which is exactly what happens
With
when he
Jake.
lets Jake fall, especially after Walter says, "Save the boy or catch me and get your answers."
Here's the thing about this scene, though. So basically, him versus his master. His master comes at him. He sends the hawk after the master. The hawk claws in his face. The master smashes the hawk off of the face, and then they get into a little bit of fisticuffs going on.
Yeah.
But the hawk is not down and out.
Nope.
So right off the bat, you get the feeling that the hawk's done. It was a one-off shot. But then this hawk, David, is even named, is a fighter, and it's still alive. So he pitches the hawk at the guy again, and the hawk's, to its last breath, still fighting. So I was like, that hawk who sacrificed himself for his buddy is the best part of this book. Good on you, Hawk. Way to go down fighting. Yes. Because in movies, you want to, or books, you want to identify with characters.
You identified with the hawk?
Out of this whole book, I identified with like 2 paragraphs worth of Hawk. I was like, that Hawk showed character, That Hawk, put his life on the line. That Hawk is something I can respect. Yeah. The Hawk.
I see.
Yeah, that's what
I
I
really felt for Roland. I didn't identify with him. I would not leave my friends in the dust for any reason.
Sure. Yeah, I just like the book. No. Hawk.
Who needs friends? But I really felt badly for him because I've known what it feels like to be friendless and to be isolated, and it's awful. And then so that's why when he makes the choice to lose Jake or finish that particular part of his quest, and he goes for the quest, I was like, oh god, double stab. The losing of Jake and how he's going to feel now for the rest of eternity. Even though, never mind, we'll get into the later books when we get to the later books, but I was just like, oh, god damn, that was awful. The first time I read that, I cried for like days. Yeah. Nope. Anything to add, PY?
Not that I can think of right now.
No? Alright, so no final thoughts before we go to star ratings?
I thought it was awesome. But then again, it was a type of fantasy that, yes, it's not very big, but it's set up. And having read everything else, it's all very important setup. And it truly does show his character, that nothing's going to stand in his way. Which was also something that I hadn't really seen when I had started reading this. The single-minded, and the Man in Black.
Bloody single-mindedness.
Yeah, and the Man in Black goes into it too. He calls him he says that he is probably his own style of person that will single-mindedly go through. And that there might not be anybody quite like him in the rest of the universe. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't say that as a good thing either.
Nope. That's up to the
But it proves the point between Jake, the town, and everything else.
Yep. Final thoughts, Rob?
Okay, well, I'm happy you got a lot out of that. Because at least one of us did.
2 of us.
He actually had an afterword in the book, and my final comments are going to come out of the afterword. So he said, it might have been more honest for me to put it another way. It was the longest of any of my unfinished works that has remained alive and viable in my own mind. And if a book is not alive in the writer's mind, it is as dead as a year-old horse shit, even if the words continue to march across the page. That last line, as like a year-old horse shit, with the words marching across the page, that's how I felt about this book.
Aww.
So I'm not sure whether it was viable. Sorry, dude.
It totally was.
She thinks it was.
Yeah.
He thinks it was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I really like this book. I love the mash of genre. I love that it was a King Arthur myth wrapped up in a weird western with dark fantasy elements thrown all over the place. I loved the idea of Roland and his bloody single-mindedness. And yeah, it's just, I love the description. The language used is really, really good. And I think it's the only Stephen King book I've read that employs that kind of descriptive language. So yeah, super enjoyed it. Star rating?
I can't give it a 0. 1 on 5.
1 out of 5. PY?
I'd go with a 4.
Yeah. I'm exactly the same. 4 out of 5. Good book.
We'll stick the link up to the poem into the comments of the video, right?
Yeah, the poem.
You guys should check that out.
Child Roll into the Dark Tower Came by Robert Browning. Okay, PY, since you're so very rarely here, you get to pick the next book.
Yay. Go with this one. The Shining Girls. And we have cheering in the background.
A hands up from the peanut gallery. Okay, so the book that we're reading in a couple weeks' time is The Shining Girl. You know what? I need more coffee. The Shining Girls, by Laura Bukes, I think is how you pronounce her name. If you have any thoughts on the first book of the Dark Tower series, The Gunslinger, leave them in the comments below, or you can join us on our Goodreads book club. I'll leave a link for that. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye!